So buckle in, have a seat, and let's get into it. Hey, what's up? Hello. All right, I'm back. And today's episode is entitled Bored AF. And I don't know about you, but coming out of 2020, I have plenty of stories of things that I did, tried, uh, drank, smoked, ate, whatever, out of pure boredom. And now, granted, in my 31 going on 32 years of life, there have been plenty of times before one of the worst years of our collective existence's life that I had been bored and made decisions and choices based on that boredom. So um, let's hop right into it, shall we? Mm, boredom. I am an only child. You'll probably hear me say that so many times throughout the um, series of this podcast, however long I choose to do it. This podcast, in some ways, was born out of boredom. In other ways, it was born out of my creative process. And I think my creative process sometimes gets like confused with my state of boredom because when you're an only child, you have to entertain yourself. You have to make your own fun. Um, Usually in moments of boredom. My both my parents, growing up and to this day, work really really hard, and as someone who is a self starter in a lot of ways, I think that equation really was only possible, at least while I was a child, as long as I could entertain myself and kind of make myself do things, um, just to give my parents the room to be able to do what they needed to do. And so you're welcome, Dolores and Londo. No, I'm kidding. Uh, they are the reason why I breathe, literally. And they won't hesitate to tell you. Anyway, so yeah, but that being said, I have learned some things about productive boredom and non productive boredom. And I'm currently on a journey of learning how to know the difference in those moments because boredom be tricky like that. So, for instance, a productive version of my boredom would be creating this podcast. Um, I listen to so many podcasts, sometimes just so I can hear somebody else speaking so I don't feel alone. How sad is that? But it's true. It's the honest to God truth. Sometimes I just listen to podcasts just to feel like somebody else is in the room. And I think that's okay. And if I can provide that for somebody else, awesome. That makes me feel good. Um, But as a longtime listener of podcasts, a longtime fan of podcasting, I've always wanted to do it and just haven't really gotten around to it. And you would have thought that in 2020, I would have made the time to do it. But I think I was so consumed with the idea that like I legitimately had time to even be bored that I explored things that I always said I didn't have time to do. And one of those things was biking. So, a productive way to spend my time ended up being biking every single day. I went from biking like 5 to 7 miles in one ride, which still took me like an hour and a half, to on average doing like 10 miles in a ride in under an hour. And it's part of my regular life now, and I'm so grateful to it because it is keeping me in shape. It's a great way to get out in nature. It's a great way to be social while still being antisocial if you want. So that's one productive thing. Another thing was that in 2020, I really focused in on how to record vocals and saxophone from my house. And it became a new source of revenue for me. Uh, as a musician, singer, songwriter in Nashville, one way that you can really be in the community is as a recording artist. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm going to put out my own music, which I still need to do. Shut up, I know. Um, but essentially, there's this whole world of studios all throughout Nashville where they are hiring session singers, session players, all of the above to come in and record a song that they may never have heard before. You might walk into a scenario and they put a sheet of paper in front of you and they say, hey, we want you to stack your vocals like this. We want to hear this kind of style of singing or playing. And we need you to get it right pretty quickly so we can move on to the next song. Um, and so I spent a lot of time in town doing that in somebody else's studio. But over 2020, a lot of those studios shut down because of COVID. Luckily, a lot of them are back now. But at the time, those were gone, but people still needed recordings. And so I invested in the proper recording equipment to be able to um, do just any kind of recording really needed, including the podcast you are listening to right this very moment. And so, yeah, like that's another productive thing that has been born from boredom, but in turn is now making me money, which is freaking tight. And that's like, that's best case scenario, honestly. Um, let's see, non-productive. I'm probably going to go back and forth between productive and non-productive. A non-productive use of my time. Well, there was this one time where I was both bored and poor, which is like the worst thing you can be as a creative. Especially if you are a creative that uses their boredom as fuel sometimes. So there was this one time I was both bored and poor and decided to do a little bit of modeling for Bart Durham, personal injury attorney. I saw an advertisement in a Facebook group that had basically said, hey, we're looking for some models to model for Bart Durham. Your photo may be on a billboard or a park bench or on a bus or something. And I said, hey, that sounds like fun. And the reason why I said, hey, it sounds like fun is because they were paying like $150 cash to just show up and do it. And so my thought was, okay, I'm going to show up. I'm going to look cute, but I'm not going to look like cute, cute, because then I'll look like I'm trying and they'll pay me, but they might not use these photos. It backfired. Now, for a year, those photos didn't see the light of day. Like I assumed, oh, great, my plan worked. I got my money that I needed, and no one will ever see this photo. Wonderful. But a year later rolls around, I start getting text messages. Hey, is this you on this park bench? Hey, I think I saw you down by Vanderbilt. Was that you? One of the photos did see the light of day, and currently throughout Nashville, there are park benches with me and Bart's other colleague. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name at the moment. But anyway, of me cheesing super hard with really bad weave that I did myself. Which, side note, another thing that happens with boredom, especially if you're a black girl with YouTube, which is pretty much all of us, you turn to YouTube University and you find ways to mess up your hair. Um, so I was really into the idea of microlink extensions. And so I installed them on my head just fine. But looking back, like I looked a hot mess. And so even now, to this day, those photos are all throughout Nashville. And every once in a while, I still get a text message from someone saying, hey, is that you on this park bench? And I just say, yep, sure was. And now, granted, don't get me wrong, like, it's really cool. Like, I don't know a ton of people who can say that they did a modeling gig or let alone did a modeling gig and got paid for it, let alone did a modeling gig, got paid for it, and got published somewhere. It's pretty cool that my visage is on a park bench. Sure, that's pretty cool, and um, I'm grateful for that. But in terms of how I would have rather made my debut as a model, um, I think I maybe would have chosen like another outlet or opportunity. I don't know. Um, but again, non-productive things can come out of boredom when you are someone who uses that boredom to fuel what you're doing. And it's an awkward conversation to have, especially when that park bench shows up around the same time that one of your bands is now releasing music. And like you want to be taken seriously in this town, and like this town is super small. Like, everyone from LA and New York or wherever they're moving here, yes. And Nashville's one of the fastest growing cities in this country. But even within that, it's still a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Um, so yeah, whatever. I took that L. I'll proudly tell people about it. It's okay. Do as I say, not as I do. Um, let's see. There was another time where I was super bored in 2020 and got on the dating apps after not being on them for a, pretty much a whole year. And I met a guy and we quickly got into a relationship. And then, I don't know, it was just like really toxic. And I think that I was settling for a situation that not only was toxic, but if I'm being frank, it was abusive, um, like mentally. Um, and I think that because I was bored, I was allowing myself to endure treatment that I would not otherwise allow myself to endure. And there were some great things about this individual, and there were some great things that I got out of it. But at the end of the day, when I look back at like the manipulation and the emotional abuse that happened, I didn't need that. Or rather, maybe I went through it because I was supposed to, but I don't think that a different me would go through it for quite as long as I allowed myself to. But I am going to do another podcast about that kind of stuff, going in a little bit more detail um, at another time. So, because that's not what this episode is about. This episode is about being bored. Damn it. Um. So, yeah, like it's really easy to like fall into something just because you're bored. Out of boredom, sometimes, especially when you are fun employed, boredom can breed desperation, and that's another thing you really don't want to be like desperate AF. Not this girl. Like, I am desperately seeking to not be desperate. Let's put it that way. Um, let's see. I have made lavish meals out of boredom. And I can't decide if that's like productive or non-productive. I would say my waistline says that it's non-productive. Um, but my heart says that it's productive. And so I don't know. You really have to look at like what your goals are in life, and then maybe just like gauge how bored you're willing to allow yourself to be. Um yeah, that's that on that. um I don't know. Also, I'm a homeowner, and boredom is a dangerous thing when you're a homeowner because for me, I've done so much like shoddy work to my house um out of boredom. There is backsplash in places that really don't need it. Um, in my bedroom, I've got these like laminate hardwood planks, but I didn't take the time to like level out the floor. I didn't take time to cut the planks in a such a way that you stagger them. Like there's a whole technique that I didn't do because sometimes I have a tendency to be both bored, lazy, and rush through things, like not totally detailed oriented, which is a very bad thing when you own a house. And so, yeah, if you were to look in my room right now, you would see that like a lot of the floor is covered in a massive rug. And that's not because of some stylish aesthetic, as the kids are saying now. Also, side note, when did aesthetic start being spelled with an A? I might be making myself sound really stupid, and that's okay. I'm not afraid of that. But like, I went for so much of my life until like maybe a couple months ago, spelling it with the E. I didn't know that there was a distinction between aesthetic with an E and an aesthetic with an A. But apparently there is, according to TikTok and probably a dictionary. But anyway, um, yeah, my floor. It's like you can see the concrete in a lot of the spots because the boards didn't quite fit together the way they were supposed to, and they look a hot mess. Just a terrible, sad, hot mess. That's boredom, baby. I bought $250 worth of plants a month ago. I am a plant killer, and frankly, like bringing my plants into the house, it kind of felt like a death march for them because I'm like, okay, it's really just the countdown to when you all die. And I say that in earshot of them, and guys, I'm sorry. Like, I'm trying, I really am. I bought, I think there was, let's see, one, two, there's 8 plants in this house that I bought, and one of them is dead already. Um, but the other ones are still alive and kicking. So I'm hoping that that one, maybe it just like it was its own thing, or maybe it killed itself and it's not my fault. I don't know. Maybe it got bored. Who knows? I'll be really curious to see how I keep them alive when I go on tour this fall. I might need to get a friend who'd be willing to water them. We'll see. Stay tuned on that one. Um, but yeah, and then like sometimes boredom brings depression for me, which is really a non-productive thing because when I get depressed, um and I'm bored, now I have this anxiety from not being productive, and then it becomes this like hamster wheel of like I'm depressed because I'm bored, and now I have anxiety about it, and I'm like paralyzed by that anxiety and can't get anything done. And then that just starts all over again. It's a cycle. It's not fun. So I really have to work on that. Um, but yeah, like, let's see. Also, there was this one time that I had just graduated college. I was living in Minnesota, still at my parents' house at the time. Um, I was working 2 different retail jobs and was working at the private airport um, in St. Paul. And I was so bored. Like I wasn't doing music. Um, I had borrowed somebody's bass and like learned some Jamiroquai bass lines, but I wasn't performing. I wasn't doing anything that felt like it was towards my own career and what I wanted to do. I was just like making money because my parents told me like I needed to go get a job today. I needed to get a job yesterday. And so that's what I was doing. And it's just like was not my steez by any means. And so the guy I was dating at the time and my best friend at the time, they had both moved down to Nashville, like right after college. And they were like, girl, like just get here. You can like live here until you figure out where you want to live, whatever. And so out of boredom, I packed up all my things and I moved to Nashville and started on my journey here. And that was probably the best use of my boredom, knowing what I didn't want. In fact, I'll say this, like having those jobs that I did, one of which allowed me to transfer down to through the Nashville office so that I could like be working when I moved. And um and so like that was really chill of them. They were like really cool. Actually, okay, so I worked for the Apple store. That was one of my jobs. Another Apple store alumni, I don't know, Quinta. She too worked at an Apple store that allowed her to transfer to the LA store. And we see each other, or rather, I see her because she has no idea who I am. I just love her dearly. Her book, She Memes Well. It's delightful. Please go read it. Anyway, yeah. So the kind folks at Apple allowed me to transfer. And so when I moved to Nashville, I had the job with them. And then I went and interviewed and got an internship at a smaller boutique agency on Music Row. And like that was super chill. And then at that point I wasn't bored. I was overworked. And because I was at the internship, which pause. I have a love-hate relationship with the idea of internships because frankly, a lot of times, as a lot of people say, it's like it's slave labor. You're not getting paid. And so the only time an internship, in my opinion, is worth anybody's time is if it's a scenario where you are not only getting on the job training, but you are brought into scenarios that are grooming you to be the most successful version of yourself in that role. Whether it's going to um, important business meetings just as a shadow fly on the wall, or you are interfacing with clients that can maybe be the source of your next job once you graduate from school or whatever it is. Um, but a good internship is not one where all you're doing is filing paperwork and answering the phone or running errands. That's not helping you. It's not, it's really not. All they're doing is getting you to do a job that they should be paying you at least minimum wage for as an office administrator. That's what those jobs are. Excuse me. That's what those internships are. They're jobs that they don't pay you for. So, that being said, I still valued the small bit of time I spent at that internship because it at least put me closer to Music Row. And it was a name that I could drop while I was interviewing for other jobs a few months later because out of boredom from being overworked at two jobs that I just really didn't want to do anymore, I called out sick one day and I just started making phone calls to the other places where I actually wanted a job. And in doing so, I ended up getting interviews at two of the biggest talent agencies in the world. And it was from those moments that like set my life up for the next 4 years. And yeah, like that was an important lesson for me of like just because you're busy doesn't mean you're not bored. Just because I was busy did not mean I wasn't bored. And I think when you learn the distinction between the two, that more doesn't mean success. More can, quite frankly, just mean more. So, um, yeah, like once I was able to do that, I interviewed, got hired at both. There was some drama that you can hear in another episode that went down when I got hired at both. But the reality was, I was then in a position where I actually got to choose where I wanted to work. Isn't that beautiful? So, yeah, like being bored AF isn't like the worst thing in the world. It's just a matter of figuring out when it's productive and when it's non productive. Because the other small note I want to add is like if you're bored or there's like a lack of things for you to do, sometimes it's okay to just not do anything. Like give yourself a moment to like breathe, to woosah, to go try something new. Um, I mentioned it earlier, but yes, 2020 was that time for a lot of us. 2020 was a time where a lot of people were like just about to release new music, or maybe they were about to start a new job, or I don't know, go on a vacation that they were planning, whatever. And the world shut down collectively. And I think a lot of people had a really hard time with it. But I also know a lot of people who embraced it, who realized, oh my God, this is the first time in years that I've been able to spend time with my family, to be able to spend time with my kids, um, to focus on myself, get healthy again, to cook for myself, learn a new skill. read the books that I've been meaning to read, whatever it is. Um, and so for me, I'm grateful for those parts of 2020. There were a lot of really horrific things and messed up things that happened. But like, let's think about the racial reckoning movement that is still ongoing, but definitely like kicked off again last year. I feel like because so many people were bored and didn't have a lot to do, and there really wasn't anything going on in the news cycle aside from um, the election year and Trump being Trump. I think people had time to actually pay attention to what mattered and gave the movement legs that I don't know it would have had it happened even the year before. And it- I look at that and I am thankful in that divine timing that even through the tragedies that happened last year, that we were able to shake up the world, as Gianna says. We shook up the world. And I think that this is a moment in history that hopefully will not only not be forgotten, but I hope that we're not done with this moment. There are some people that think, okay, well, the world's getting back to normal. So, like, can we stop talking about it? No, no, we cannot. We cannot stop talking about it. So, once again, there's productive things that can come out of boredom. There's a way that boredom focuses us in on the important things sometimes when we're open to it and able to see it. And there's a way for boredom to maybe make us non productive. But it's up to us to figure out the difference. Okay, so like if I were to make a list of the things that bore me, which it's like, okay, why am I even doing an episode called Bored AF? Because how would that even be interesting to listen to? But I don't know, maybe you can relate to it. But here's like a short list of things that bore me or instances to where I become bored. The first is when I am listening to somebody who's not passionate about whatever it is that they're talking to. It's very easy for me to get bored in that instance because oftentimes when people aren't talking about the things that they're passionate about, they're not really giving you honest dialogue. So I think if anything, I seek honest dialogue with the people that I interact with on a regular basis. And the moment that I realize that, you know what, these conversations that I'm having with you are most often from a surface place, I start to tune it out. Um, Another way that I get bored when it's non productive. So, specifically, I mean this in the context of like a work scenario, work music scenario. Like, if I show up and people aren't managing time well, if people aren't valuing my time well, um, I get bored. I disengage. Um, Another thing is when someone is not being respectful to me or to my colleagues. I get bored with that individual very quickly. Um, Respect is important. So respect, RESPECT, whatever. Um, and if you don't, you'll find out what it means to me because I actually won't be around because I'm a dip. Um, let's see what else. I get bored when people are redundant, which actually means there's a lot of times I tune myself out. Uh, it's true. There are times when I tune myself out even because at some point when you become redundant and you've already heard something, why do you need to hear it again? Because again, for the sake of clarity, not for the sake of being redundant, I feel like if you're being redundant, you're not respecting your use of time or my use of time or my ability to maybe hear you clearly the first time. So, yeah, don't do that. And I'm telling you this as I'm telling myself that. Don't do it. um, let's see. I also get really bored when I am trying kind of like the same thing. It goes back to the redundancy, but in like application of things where if I'm trying something and it just doesn't work, like, and I'm trying over and over again, it really doesn't work, then I get bored. Like, if I don't see a difference in results, why am I still doing it? Why haven't I changed something about what I'm doing to get a different result? You know, it's like the definition of insanity, where you try the same thing over and over again, expecting different results each time. It's insanity, and I'd like to think I'm not insane. I know I'm a little bit crazy. We all are, but I am getting better at realizing when I'm doing something over and over again that is not productive and shaking it up, even if it's just tweaking like the smallest bit of it. It's important to do. Um, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I get bored when the phone stops ringing. Luckily for me, the phone in general hasn't stopped ringing, but um, it's also because in those moments when I realize the phone could stop, I try and do something different, i.e., podcasting, that generates a little bit more momentum. Momentum is key, especially as a fun employed person like myself. You got to build the momentum. You got to keep it going and you got to be your own hype train. And you can't do that from a place of boredom. Or rather, you can do it from a place of boredom, but just make sure it's that productive boredom I was talking about earlier. I also find chick flicks, for the most part, to be incredibly boring. Like, I'm going to need you to Michael Bay it up. So, my perfect chick flick would be one where, like, the protagonist is also a superhero. Also, maybe Michael B. Jordan or Chris Evans or both are in it. I'm going to need at least four explosions within the first 20 minutes. I'm going to need fire. I'm going to need a good cat suit with like a couple zippers here and there, but like really spots where you're just like, how does this person carry any weaponry on this cat suit that they're wearing? Like, how does that work? How do they do backflips in this? How does that work? Actually, one of my favorite television shows is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I can't tell you how many times I've rewatched that whole entire series. But I think one of the things that keeps me excited about it is that, God, there's so many things. Maybe I should make an episode of my favorite, like, like my standum. I'm writing that down actually, standum AF. Um, but basically, I can watch Buffy and probably recite every episode verbatim to you as it's happening. And I think I love it because she is unexpected. Like the very nature of her archetype in that show is unexpected. She is a teenage girl of small petite stature, imbued with the powers of a demon, and able to kick ass and take names and still be relatable, but she still like falls in love and does all this stuff. And that's about as chick flicky as I'm going to get. The only exception to that rule is any J-Lo chick flick. I will stop what I'm doing to watch a J-Lo chick flick. I promise you. Like, oh my God. Made in Manhattan, that pink dress that I know isn't chiffon, but I'm like still kind of poor, so I don't know better materials. But essentially, that pinkish chiffon dress that she wears at that gala with those diamonds that they stole, um, like made me cry the first time I saw it, and still to this day makes me like tear up when I see her walking. Like, I'm talking to you right now and I can see this dress. And I know some of you listening who have seen that movie know that iconic moment. Another iconic moment in dress history would be Anne Hathaway. There's a couple of them, but they're all in The Princess Diaries. The first is when she goes from being in the bleachers, talking to the driver guy, her bodyguard, and he's teaching her how to walk down the stairs like a princess, like regal as fuck. And she puts her hand on the railing as daintily as possible, and then all of a sudden she flips to this like gorgeous, like high collared but low square neck baby blue dress that's long sleeve with a train. And while I did not cry when she came out in that dress, I was like, "Oh damn!" Like iconic. Like that whole movie just full of iconic moments. But again, not boring to me because um, her character also was so relatable. Growing up, I was not popular. I had friends, but like I was not really like in any kind of clique. And I can tell you, I remember so many times asking some of my friends to hang out after school and then being like, "Oh no, I think I'm just gonna like go home and chill." And then like waiting for my parents to pick me up after school and seeing them all collectively walk home together to all hang out together. And me just being like, "Oh, okay, cool." So, like, even within the group of kids that weren't the cool kids, I was also not a cool kid. And I think from the boredom of that lived experience, I then became a better musician for it. I ended up focusing on music and what I wanted those endeavors to be. And it led me to where I am now. Um, let's see. Oh, boredom. Um, Things that don't make me bored. So I love video games. I have been a gamer since I was 4 when my parents bought me an Atari that came with all of the games. And like literally every game made for Atari, I had. I don't remember a lot of them because I was 4, damn it. But I played them all and loved them dearly. Then I graduated to Sega Genesis and I played all the Sonic games. I had, let's see, there was this game called Alex Kidd, which, like, I don't know how many of you know about that game, but that one's like a deep cut, super chill, loved it. Um, and I had the Power Rangers game, of course. Um, yeah, like all basically all the cool games for Sega I had. And then I graduated to a PlayStation 1 and then was in the PlayStation fam until after the PlayStation 2 came out. And then in college, I was indoctrinated into the Xbox family. And so I ended up getting an Xbox 360. And then um, shortly thereafter, graduated to the Xbox One. And now I am currently gaming on the Xbox One X, not to be confused with the Xbox Series X, which hardly anybody has. I want it. And I think I also want the PS5. I think I want all the consoles. I have enough TVs for them, which is totally a blessing and a privilege, I understand, but I think I want them all. Do I have time to play everything? No, but I think I want them all. Um, Lately, probably for the last year, I've almost exclusively been playing Grand Theft Auto Online. My character's a baddie. She has her own condo. She has her own high rise apartment. She has a house. She has what else? She has like 23 cars. They're all sports cars. They're all armored vehicles. They're all white and blue with like ambient lighting. Like she's a baddie. And she also lives at the casino as well and has a submarine. Like she's so cool. And I also fully recognize that I'm playing this game probably with 12-year-olds. So I typically don't put a headset on and I try and mute everybody because, ew, no, I don't need to talk to people's children. I'm just trying to play a game. You know, no pedo. So, yeah, like I play video games. I love that. I also read. Currently, I'm reading She Memes Well by Quinta. I also just got the Cicely Tyson autobiography, and it's really, really thick, so it's probably gonna take me a while to read it. But oh my God, the knowledge, the infinite wisdom that this woman carried, um, and the ability to wait as long as she did to write it all down, but also do it in divine timing, which I talk about a lot. But she wrote everything down and had it published. It actually came out, like, I want to say a week or two after she passed away. And I don't know if she knew she was going to pass away in the timing that she did, but my goodness, the book certainly came out at the right time. So I'm grateful for her for that, and I'm just slowly chipping away at that. Um, I have Small Doses by Amanda Seales. That's also a great one that sometimes I just like open it up on a random page and just start reading. Um, it's a lot of fun to do that with that book in particular. Um, I've got some self help books. Um, I I've got some historical fiction. I've also got some historical nonfiction, so a history book. um, I don't know. I really like those things. Those things keep me not bored. Um, and I mentioned biking. Love doing that. I have a thing I do called Black Girl in Bloom, where I'll take a blanket and I'll take a stack of books, maybe some edibles, um, and some beverages and some sushi or something, and I'll go out to a park and I'll just lay out for hours and just read and write, make lists, do the things, and just kind of enjoy nature and life and embrace the lack of things to do by giving myself something super low key and chill to do. Because oftentimes I leave those Black Girl in Bloom sessions with like all the things to think about and do and be productive. In fact, this podcast was born from a Black Girl in Bloom session where I literally sat down and wrote down a bunch of adjectives and wrote AF afterwards, and I was like, yeah, that's an episode. Yeah, that's an episode. Uh-huh. Yep, let's do it. Let's get it. And then walked into my house, recorded 3 episodes, and now you're listening to them. And yeah, like here we are. Um yeah, again, it's that productive versus non-productive boredom thing. So, yeah, I think that's probably it for lists. I don't know. We're getting into it. Like, thank you for listening. Like, I'm not done with this episode. This is not the end. But I'm just saying thank you because I am grateful that you've gotten this far. 43 minutes into this here podcast, and I'm just like, "What?" Um yeah. So, um, you know, list making is something that I also like to do when I'm bored. Um, I I might share some of those on a later episode. Some of them include who would I haunt if I were to die tomorrow? Like who would I come back and haunt? And I've literally written down, and it is a running list because like that's going to change. It's probably going to grow. There's a good 7 people currently on that list with very valid reasons for why I will haunt them if I die in the foreseeable future and they don't before me. Like if I die before them, oh, I'm haunting them and I'm going to be annoying as shit. Like it's happening. Um so to that point, those people that I would come back and haunt. Um Going along with that, oh my God. Sometimes you might hear my toilet in the background, because I actually think I have ghosts in my house, and they too have to use the bathroom, and they use the guest bathroom, and that one tends to make noise sometimes. But anyway, to the point of annoying people, I do have a rant today. Sometimes I'm going to have these rants, sometimes I'm not. What is a podcast with one host but a rant anyway? Just food for thought. But today, I'd like to rant about the individuals who, when they're bored, They decide to spread rumors and attack other people. What the heck is about, like, what is that? Why is it necessary for someone when they're bored to be jealous of someone else who's not bored? Like, the biggest way or the easiest way for me to know when somebody is bored is when they're in my business. I saw a meme recently that said, if I'm minding my business and, well, you're minding my business, who the hell is minding your business? Right? And so I'm just like, okay, just so you're clear, just so I'm clear, just so we see each other. If you are in my business and in my bowl of grits, and you're not paying attention to what you've got going on, you're going to remain bored because what's happening is you are still spending time doing something else related to other people, something else other than doing something for yourself. And it's sad. And I just like it bothers me, and it also makes me sad for other people because now you're also choosing to spread something that's not positive. You're choosing to attempt to bring other people down. Sometimes it brings me down. I like if I'm being fully honest and real with you and myself. Sometimes those haters can really like stop me for a couple minutes. Um when Trigger Hippie first announced that I was going to be part of the crew, um there were a couple there were I want to start by saying the Trigger Hippie fans are so awesome. I love you guys. I don't know if any of you guys are listening to this. If you are, I love you. Like, I'm grateful to you. And like, some of you guys will fly halfway across the country to come to our shows. And like, how cool is that? Like, thank you. Thank you. However, there are a super small select few that took time out of their day to be like racist towards me in those announcements initially. Um and it I don't want to say it hurt because as a black woman in America, like that is not the first time I've experienced racism or coded prejudice or blatant prejudice. Definitely not the first time. But I do think in some of those moments when I saw it, it gave me pause and it said, "Oh my god, like why is this coming up in my world again?" Like, and I don't know, maybe it's naive of me to assume that I can outgrow other people's racism. I think it's definitely naive of me to do that. But um I just it made me sad. But if I have to think about why they even fixed their ashy fingers to even type those things, I have to think it's because they didn't have anything else going on in their own lives, that they're bored and sad about it. And they're sad that they're seeing somebody who is an archetype of something that they, for whatever reason, don't like, being able to be happy and successful with other successful and happy people. Period. And, um, I wish them well. Unfortunately, I'm not as good as Tabitha Brown is at giving a sanctified read. So I'll just end it there. Um, on that. But yeah, like people, go get a hobby. Like 2020 should have taught you how to get a hobby. It should have taught you that the world actually doesn't happen on the internet. I've told people, some people, especially this is something I ask guys that I want to date sometimes because here's a little tea on that. So when I meet a new guy and I actually am interested, one question that I typically will ask will be, hey, let's pretend your day job was not your day job, but you could have any other day job in the world, but it can't be anything related to what you do now. What would that be? And my answer for me is I would be a digital anthropologist. And what does that mean? Well, to me, it means I'd be studying the movements of groups of people online and then comparing that to what their real waking life movement is. So, if we were looking at it from a political standpoint, let's say I follow a group of people that are um, very vocal on the internet as supporters of Donald Trump, let's just say, because it's like the easiest low hanging fruit. Um, and you take that, you look at those movements, and then you compare how they actually lean politically or policies that they actually support in real life and see if they actually have the same cross section. Like, one person might be like, I am so 100% pro Trump. I'm anti fascist. I'm this, I'm that. But then if you, in an unrelated conversation, ask them um, about if they want access to affordable health care or not, they may say the opposite of that. And then so studying that kind of thing. So anyway, that's a tangent for another time. But um I, I would want to do that. I would want to be like a digital anthropologist. I think it'd be cool. And I don't know if it would be a real job. Maybe it's a focus of study. Maybe it's a new department that I create for a college. I don't know. But anyway, I bring that up to say that look, I just created an area of study in boredom of thinking of like what would I do if I don't do what I do now? And I think the world would be so much more productive if people did something like that. Like if they sat and said, "All right, I'm bored right now. If I could have any job in the world other than what I do, what would that look like?" And then go do it. I think we would all be so much better off. I think. Methinks. Lemmy winks. Um so anyway, all that said, my wish is that people who are bored, that they drink water, hydrate, put some chapstick on, put some lotion on, you know? And focus more on you and your own productivity and the things that you want for your life and spend a little bit less time focusing on somebody else's. We spend so much time on Instagram and Twitter tweeting at people who really most of the time will never either see said tweets or comments, or if they do, really they might not even be running their own accounts. Like, all things considered, those people are making money off of the fact that you're retweeting them and talking about them. There's one person in particular that I have fallen prey to in terms of getting triggered by the things that she chooses to say and fix her ashy lips to say. I don't want to mention her name here because I don't want to add to her media spin that she has. I really don't. It's bad. And I am forcing myself to not comment because for a while I felt like, oh my God, like I need to be a black person to comment against the things that she says as another black female because they're just so wrong. And like at the end of the day, I was doing that while I was bored. Meanwhile, this individual is saying a lot of really like out of pocket, like jacked up things and making money for it and like got a TV show and like is on Fox News all the time and whatever. And like I could make commentary about that, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. This person is making money and I don't know if they're happy. I have to imagine that they probably like have an itchy booty all the time. But, that's it's really not my business. Eh, She's getting paid at the end of the day. So, like, whatever. Okay. I can be pissed at her all I want. It's not going to change anything. All I can do is focus on me and focus on making a better version of myself, making better content for you guys from my own platform and building my own platform. So, yeah. And I think for the woosah today, let's just start by breathing. Find the time to be present in your own boredom and to mind your business, man. Just mind your business. Mind your business, man. Just mind your business. Boredom does not equal lack of success. More sometimes just means more. Less can be success. Be present, be present. Be aware and be present. And once again, mind your business, man. Just mind your business. Well, the time has come, the walrus said. Um, to think on many things. I can't remember how that goes anymore. Anyway, we have reached the end of the Bored AF episode. And, I'm glad I did it. Was I bored while doing it? I'm not going to lie. Like, talking about the things that bore me is another thing that bores me. I hope it didn't bore you, though. But goodness, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I am learning more and more about myself as I do this. And some of it's not going to be as fun as others. I just recorded one that is probably 2 hours long. And who knows, I might make it 2 episodes or it might just be one. Really not sure what's going to be good for y'all. Um, but in any case, I really thank you for listening. Stay tuned for next week where I talk about more things. And I'll see you soon. Okay, bye.